Let's get to another thing that came out last night, Rob, is that Michael Jordan was upset that the Bulls were broken up after their 6th championship in 8 years. Here's what he said about wanting to stick around and go for number 7.
In 98, Krause already said at the beginning of the season, Phil can go 82-0. And he was never going to be the coach. So when Phil said it was the last dance, it was the last dance. We knew they weren't going to keep the team. Now, they could have nixed all of it at the beginning of 98. Why say that statement at the beginning of 98? If you ask all the guys who won in 98, Steve Kerr, Judd Bushler, blah, blah, blah. We give you 1-year contract to try for 7. You think they would have signed? Yes, they would have signed. Would I sign for 1 year? Yes, I would have signed for 1 year. I've been signing 1-year contracts up to that. Would Phil done it? Yes. Now, Pip, you would have to do some convincing, but if Phil was going to be there, if Dennis was going to be there, if MJ was going to be there to win our 7th, Pip is not going to miss out on that.
All right, Rob, what do you think? Jordan making some. Let me say this first. Okay, go ahead.
No way, no how. Mike has revisionist history, and it's easy to say that after the fact when you got a pot belly and you got a lot of money and you own a team, and you could sit there and say, oh, yeah, I would have signed a 1-year deal, and so would have all these other guys. We just had Chris Mannix on, and I think his point was well taken about what was at stake for the other guys who all finally got paid and got money. This isn't 2020 where scrubs are making $20 million, Chris. People didn't make the kind of money that they make now. And the other part is, I think it's so hard to win. And even Michael, even before that, kept talking about how tired he was and how worn out he was. And now all of a sudden, 20 years later, he's talking about, oh, yeah, I was ready. I would have been ready for another year, another one. I don't believe that they would have been automatically won again. And I don't think guys would have joined in. Michael had the sneaker deal. Michael had off the court money. Michael had, yes, he could have signed a 1-year deal. He could have done it. I don't think the other guys could have done it.
Well, I remember that was the lockout season. You remember that. And I was covering that lockout for the New York Times. Jordan wasn't sure of what he was going to do. Just during the lockout, remember, he played an instrumental role in that lockout. And there was always in the negotiations this question of, was Jordan going to play again? And so I think now Jerry Reinsdorf goes to Phil Jackson and says, we want you to come back, but we're going to rebuild. To me, that's, for lack of a better term, disingenuous. Of course, Phil Jackson didn't want to rebuild after winning 6 championships. And of course, Michael Jordan didn't want to rebuild. Here's the deal, Rob, and you always say this, and I agree with this point you make. You're talking about billionaire owners, okay? Scottie Pippen, I believe, got a 5-year, $67 million deal with Houston. It was a sign and trade, okay? So Chicago signed and traded him. They could have signed Pippen to a large 1-year deal. Jordan had been doing 1-year deals. Remember, he got $30 million in 97 and $33 million in 97, 98, that last year. So they could have done something similar for Pippen. They had his bird rights. He could have got, $20 million or something like that. Now, that's not $67 million. So we're talking again, billionaire owners. And Jerry Reinsdorf, if he wanted to, could have given Pippen a long-term deal. Pippen was 31 years old. He's going to turn 32 in September of that year. And the next year, he played all 50 games. It was a lockout season. He averaged 40 minutes a game, all 50 games. The next year, he played all 82. That's when after that, he played 64, 62, 64. So that's my point is this, Rob. The acrimony that made Pippen want to go, was it necessary? They could have taken care of Pippen earlier. They could have, told him, look, they could have taken care of him at that point. He didn't have to be upset if they had been managed correctly. And if you had, I think what they would have had to do is you got Phil back, you got Mike back because Phil's there. If they take care of Pippen, which they should have, he helped you get 6 titles for goodness sake. And he's 31 years old. He's not 40. He's not 35. And then the guy you probably would have had to replace was Dennis Rodman. They could lose Luke Longley and freaking Steve Kerr. They could find a shooter like Kerr close enough. They always did. B.J. Armstrong, John Paxson, Craig Hodges. Steve Kerr is not unique. They could have got one of them. And Luke Longley, again, Bill Winnington, Will Perdue, Bill Cartwright, Stacey King, Bison Dele. I mean, my goodness, 7-foot guys that are good for a bunch of fouls can be found anywhere. So I'm not worried about them. Go get your money, Luke and Steve. Fine. We could get those. Rodman would have been the guy. And the question is this. Could Phil and Mike have controlled Rodman for one more year? Because his career was basically over. He goes to LA the next year, plays 23 games, and then I think Dallas the year after that plays 12. But how much of that was physical and how much of it was mental? Chicago, he had acted up in San Antonio before getting to Chicago. But Chicago, they were able to control it. I'm not sure they could have because obviously he was, acting up in the last year in Chicago, going to wrestle and going to Vegas and all that stuff. So maybe
during the finals.
Right.
I think that's a pipe dream.
Right, okay. So, I probably would have gone with you on that. If I was, in position running the Bulls, I probably would have said, you know what? We got to let Dennis go. We got 3 straight. He's acting up. We got the most out of him that we can. But instead of Jerry Krause putting all his energy into doing the 3 signing trades for Pippen, Longley, and Kerr, how about putting your energy into making a deal that gets you a replacement for Dennis Rodman? He's not going to be as good as Rodman. But go get me somebody that can rebound, that's tough, and then bring me some shooters. Like, I just think, it would have been tough to do. And like I said, I'm wanting for things to work out, and Reinsdorf could have done it. He's a billionaire. But they didn't want to. This is the question, though, Rob. For argument's sake, let's say they could have come back. Do you think they could have gotten to the finals and beaten the San Antonio Spurs of David Robinson and Tim Duncan?
No.
So you don't think they were good enough anymore?
No, I just think that even, and they won. I'm not saying that they didn't win. It wasn't easy. There was a hard-fought battles in that series, and they were able to win that series against Utah. But I think that things do come to an end, and they were fortunate. Most of the times, when dynasties or whatever happen, it's like everything falls apart, it collapses.
Right.
And they were fortunate to just go out on top. Not very often do people get to do that. And I just think that that championship run had run its course. That was a lot trying to get out of it. The Rodman thing is a perfect example, Chris, where here he is during the finals, sneaking off to not coming to practice. It's the finals. I get it. They offered you $250,000. Kind of tells you about the money as well, that he would take the $20,000 fine to make $230,000, right? Like, okay.
Right.
If you were a basketball player and you were serious about what you were doing, can we reschedule that for a couple days is all I'm saying.
You're talking about Dennis Rodman.
Right. I know.
You think Rodman has ever uttered the words, can we reschedule that?
Yeah, no, you're right. But my point is, I just think it's revisionist history to think that I could hear him saying he would like to go, but I don't think they would win again. Remember, I don't believe that they would win again.
I think they, and again, I'm talking about a nucleus of Jackson, Jordan, and Pippen, and then put stuff around them. I think they could have beaten that Spurs team. Cause look, remember who got to the finals in the East, Rob? It was the Knicks of Latrell Sprewell, Allen Houston, Marcus Camby. I mean, they were an 8th seed. They weren't world beaters. So it was a shortened season.
They beat the 1 seed.
Yeah, the Pacers. The Miami.
No, they beat Miami.
Yeah, Miami. But that Miami team was, all those teams were pretty good. Indiana, the Knicks beat Indiana too. And so I think the Bulls team with Jordan and Pippen would have been better than that Knicks team. And then you get to the finals. David Robinson, he wasn't the MVP David Robinson anymore. He averaged fewer than 16 points a game that season. So he was not the same. Duncan obviously was Duncan, a young Duncan, but he was the man. Robinson was fading. And then you had Avery Johnson, Jaren Jackson, and Sean Elliott on the perimeter. I mean, I do think the Bulls, it would have been tough to bring them back, but I think they could have won that championship. And here's what I say, whether they could have or not, I believe, Rob, there's one of two ways for dynasties to end, or they should end this way. Either you get beat on the court or on the field, or some key member of your nucleus, and I'm talking about like the first best player, really, or maybe the second, walks away because of age. Like Kareem. When Kareem retired from Showtime, he was 42 years old. It was age he had to go. That's how I think it should end. I just think it's a shame. It'd be one thing if Jordan was like, I don't want to play anymore. But I think it's a shame for infighting and politics in the front office. And let's keep it real. Jerry Reinsdorf is ultimately to blame because he's the owner and calls the shots.
But the only thing is,
and I think that's a shame.
I don't think anybody believes that they got cheated by that Bulls dynasty. I think that
I agree with that.
Would you like nobody goes, oh man, that was terrible. It was premature. Nobody got cheated. I think people look at that and marvel at it. 2-3
I think
peats,
Jordan feels like
incredible.
He was cheated. I think Jordan feels like he said last night though, he still can't get over it.
He can't get over anything, though. He can't get over the guy who beat him out in high school. And on his high school team, he can't get over his high school coach. He can't get over the pizza guy in Utah. He can't get over anything. He can't get over Isaiah Thomas. He can't get over. What can he get over?
That's what drove him, Rob. That's what drove him to be the GOAT.
Come on, man, dude.
But
enjoy your life a little bit.
Here's the thing, Rob. He still had basketball left in him. You know this because 3 years later, he came back and was actually good. He wasn't great. But he was a legitimate all-star.
Yeah, but he couldn't.
Rob, was he still not the best player in the world?
No, but he couldn't get those guys to where they couldn't even make the playoffs where 16 of the 30 teams made the playoffs.
I know, but that was 3 years later. I'm talking about.
I'm just saying, no matter how good he was.
I'm talking about had he come back in 98, 99, the year he retired, he was still the best player in the world. How does that make sense? I'm running an organization. We got the best coach in the world. We got the best player in the world. We didn't even go 7. We went 6 games in the final. I mean, all this, they got pushed to the ring. They were up 3-1.
Well, wait a minute. But the same argument you're making, that would be the argument on how come LeBron hasn't won if he's the best player in the world with what he's had around him. He wasn't able to win. I'm just saying it ain't that automatic. I'm just saying,
no, of course it's not automatic.
It ain't that automatic.
But why break it up?
And other teams were getting better. I know why they didn't want it. Chris, they were making money. That building was sold out for the next 3 years probably. And they didn't want to pay. They wanted to start over. And they wanted to not pay. I mean, that's the reason that they really didn't want it.
I agree. I don't think that's a good reason, though.
No, but it was a financial thing. They were like,
I agree
we can sell out this building for the next people still going to come. They got season tickets. We'll make money. We got a lower payroll, and we don't have to deal with all that. I'm telling you.
I agree with that. I think that's a shameful way for a dynasty to end. Let them get beat. Jordan said it at the beginning of the series. Remember, I guess it was after their 5th ring, I believe, when he said, we should have the right to defend what we've built. Remember that? And he said, the Cubs been rebuilding for 42 years, which is actually much longer than that. But remember that?
That was a great line.
Right. So, and the Bulls tried to rebuild, Robbie. You know, they were horrible until Derrick Rose got there. Well, how long was that? 10, 15 years? And so I get all the complications and all that. But I do think had they come back, they could have won a 7th. I wasn't going to bet against Jordan, and because we never saw him lose in the finals. But Let's see what they think, Rob, the listeners. 877-99 on Fox, 877-996-6369. If the Bulls would have ran it back in 1999, would they have won a 7th ring? We'll continue the conversation with you next.
All right, let's kick it off with Tony in D.C. You're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Tony?
Fellas, what is going on? Long time no hear, but hey,
that's right.
I'm glad you guys
What's up, brother?
are doing good. Your family's doing good. Chris, been praying for you and your family and everything.
Thank you,
God
my
bless
man.
you, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank
now
you.
let's get down to business. I think with that strike shortened season, that would have benefited Jordan and those guys so good. Because the Knicks came out the East that year, right?
Right. 8th seed. Yes.
David Robinson was at the end of the line there. Tim Duncan was tapping into his abilities. I think that they would have got the Spurs, but after that, it would have been over because them boys in L.A., Shaq, especially the 2000
Shaq and Kobe.
It was Shaq's leave after that. But I think they could have clipped the Spurs in 99. And I throughout this documentary, I struggle. I've always thought Phil was a little overrated, because we never seen him build a team.
Right.
But I have more respect for Phil Jackson, but I definitely think they would have got number 7.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, the Spurs, Duncan was young and Robinson was old, and so it would have been interesting.
It doesn't feel right. Joe in Detroit, you're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Joe?
Hey, guys. I'm going to have to go with Chris and say that I'm not going to bet against Michael Jordan. He destroyed my life too much with the Penny Hardaway Bulls when I was a kid. So I just don't bet against the man. So I think with that shortened season, they would have come back and they would have beat the Spurs in 99, and that would have been it. But I also want to throw something else real quick back, and this is to Chris. Chris, after LeBron beat those 73-win Warriors, he said, I'm still chasing the GOAT in Chicago. So why are we, if he's chasing the GOAT even after he beat the 70-win Warriors, why does he come back and not use that and say, well, no, I'm not chasing anymore? Chasing means you're trailing, you're pursuing.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
Remember,
No, it
LeBron,
does make sense because he doesn't believe it.
LeBron did say that, but then remember, Rob, I guess a few months later, well, no, it wasn't months later. It was a few years later, maybe because he didn't win anymore, like maybe he thought he would have. He came out and said after that ring, or beating that 73-win Warriors team, that's when I knew I was the GOAT. Remember that, Rob? With the More Than an Athlete, with
I can never
Maverick
forget
and
it
Rich
because
and
I
those
threw
guys,
up in my
right.
mouth after I heard it. Yes, I remember it very vividly.
So, he may have realized, you know what, I'm not going to get 6 rings. May not even get 5. Let me just say now that I'm the GOAT. But
I would love to see his. Should he comment on the ESPN poll, which I just? If you're LeBron, how do you feel, Chris?
Well, here's the thing.
Seriously.
I mean,
real quick because we got 2 more calls.
Get to the calls.
Let's get to the calls. We'll get to that. I'm just.
I told you. I think the poll was cheaping because some of those votes were ridiculous.
But still, even like the head-to-head, who's the greatest? It wasn't close.
Right.
You could go about the other stuff. That's the shocking part. Marty in Kentucky, you're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Marty?
What's up, fellas? Happy Magic City Monday.
Yes,
What's
sir.
up, brother? Happy double M to you. Right? It's not even double M, is it? Yeah, kind of.
I'm gonna say that I think it would have been the hardest title for them to win. The Pacers did push them to 7 the year before. You had the Rodman issues, you had the Pippen issues. And this is hypothetical because I never think Pippen signs a 1-year contract. But hypothetically, with a shortened season, I would bet on them because they have the GOAT. But I would say it was the closest to 50-50 chance that they had. Because every time you win a championship, it's that much harder to motivate everybody to win the next one. Other than Jordan, who's motivated, it's just in his blood.
Think about the Spurs and all those champs. They never won back-to-back. Never won back-to-back.
That's one of the great things about Jordan, Marty. You bring that up. You're right. He was able to be motivated after 4 and 5 and 6 championships. You know what I mean? He still wanted more. He was never satisfied.
You know what? I guess me and Jordan are the same because when it comes to lamb chops, after 5, 6, I still want 7 or 8. I'm still motivated.
Next caller. You've been missing badly today, man.
What?
You've been missing badly. You know what was that?
Felicia in Michigan.
Is this
You're on
Felicia?
The Odd Couple. Yes,
Hi,
it is.
Felicia.
Hi, Felicia. On The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio.
Hey,
What's
hey,
happening?
how are you?
You from Detroit, right? Is she from
Hey,
Detroit?
how are you?
No, she's from
Hey.
Michigan. She doesn't
okay.
claim
Oh,
Detroit. She
Michigan.
says Michigan.
Oh, okay.
What's up?
Okay,
I was about to say.
I want to say that Rob hate, because you've been hating all day. You
Why?
sound grumpy. When the strip club gonna open back up? Because you a Jordan hater.
Oh,
You
man.
a hater.
I think he's figuring some stuff out himself.
Hey,
Oh, is that what it is?
I think Jordan had 2 more runs in him. I think he had the 7th and the 8th in him. I had 2 more runs.
Yeah, okay.
And then I want to say, when it comes down to Dennis Rodman, I think Phil allowed him to be himself. So I think he would have been able to come back, and they would have been able to control probably 2 more seasons, and that's it. But I want to point out something. David Robinson didn't like Dennis Rodman and everything else.
Right.
I mean, I wish that would speak more
and
to
vice
that
versa.
Yeah, so with that, he had, and Dennis Rodman, I feel, could have got probably more when Jordan left for those 2 years. I believe that if he had if they had that chemistry, they probably could have put Hakeem Olajuwon out of their misery. That's just me.
All right. Thank you, Felicia. Bye, Felicia.
Bye. Bye.
All right, we got our.
I'm hating. I'm not hating on Jordan. How am I hating on Jordan?
She was all over the place today.
Yeah, she was.
She's usually
right?
good.
Get
She was all
focused.
over the place. Yeah,
Focus,
she was
Felicia.